Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
A March 2020 date announced as Election Day in Guyana. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Thursday, September 26th from the CMC News Center in Bridgetown. I'm Ricardo Roberts. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. In just over 5 months, Guyanese will go to the polls to elect a new government. President David Granger announced on Wednesday night that March 2nd, 2020 will be the date for regional and general elections. That will be more than a year after his coalition government lost a no-confidence motion. In an address broadcast on radio and television, he said he had chosen the date after discussions with the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM, and the cabinet.
The chairman of the Elections Commission, Justice Claudette Singh, wrote me last Thursday, the 19th of September 2019, indicating that, and I quote, "The Guyana Elections Commission will be able to deliver credible elections by the end of February 2020. I convened a meeting of available cabinet ministers that very day, within hours of receiving her advice, to discuss the timeline provided to me by the chairman. A second meeting of the full cabinet was held yesterday, the 24th of September 2019, when all members accepted the advice provided by the chairman of the Elections Commission. Cabinet ministers also benefited from the advice of Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Mr. Basil Williams, and were guided by the need to adhere scrupulously to the advice of the Elections Commission. I met Chairman of the Elections Commission, Justice Singh, this afternoon, Wednesday the 25th of September, when she discussed the statutory timelines for the forthcoming general and regional elections. Guyanese. Guyana will observe its 50th anniversary as a republic on Sunday, the 23rd of February 2020. The following day, the 24th of February 2020, will be a national holiday. I am pleased to announce that, after discussions with the chairman of the Elections Commission and with my cabinet, the earliest possible date for the holding of general and regional elections will be on Monday, the 2nd of March 2020.
Speaking to reporters on Thursday, President Granger confirmed that March 2 was a definite date. He sought to make that clear after the opposition People's Progressive Party, the PPP, suggested his language was not clear. Under the Guyana Constitution, elections should have taken place within 90 days after the vote of no confidence was passed on December 21st, 2018, unless a two-thirds majority of the National Assembly had agreed to an extension. After legal challenges to the outcome of the no-confidence motion, the government lost its battle at the Caribbean Court of Justice, which validated the motion in June. President Granger insisted in his address, which was broadcast on radio and television, that his administration has respected the decisions of the courts and upheld the Constitution.
He challenged the validity of the no-confidence motion and defended the challenge to the constitutionality of the appointment of the chairman of the Elections Commission. The legal processes were neither frivolous nor aimed at delaying the consequences of the no-confidence motion. They sought to clarify and interpret the Constitution and to ensure that general and regional elections would be conducted on the basis of a credible list. I have complied with the rulings of the courts, upheld the Constitution of Guyana, and respected the National Assembly at all times. I engaged the Election Commission from February 2019 repeatedly. I insisted that credible elections be held at the earliest possible time. Credible elections are essential to representative democracy.
Meanwhile, the opposition PPP on Thursday appeared to accept the election date. Opposition leader Barry Jagdeo said the party was disappointed but has to work towards that date and will be moving aggressively into campaign mode. But he maintains that the PPP would continue to boycott the National Assembly. The government is seeking to hold a parliamentary session to extend the date for elections since it falls outside of the 3 months the Constitution requires upon the passage of a no-confidence motion. But Jagdeo said the PPP would not be blackmailed into attending Parliament because in seeking parliamentary approval for an extended elections date, the President is seeking to extend the life of his government and therefore give legal cover for all that has happened since the no-confidence motion was passed. He said a return to Parliament was unnecessary since the government is in caretaker mode and its only authority should be to do everything necessary for elections. Trinidad and Tobago's Finance Minister Colum Imbert is defending government's approval of the sale of state-owned Petrotrin to the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, the OWTU. Imbert announced in Parliament last Friday that Patriotic Technologies Company Limited, which is wholly owned by the OWTU, was the preferred bidder. He says the move is in the best interest of the country. We get more in this report from TV6 News.
Staffed, and it was never able to make a suitable profit because of its very, very high operating costs. We do not expect any entity, including Patriotic, to operate the refinery with the same number of persons or the same cost structure that was there before. So,
Acting Prime Minister Colum Imbert on the Cabinet's decision to choose OWTU-owned Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited as the preferred bidder for the sale of the state oil refinery owned by Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited subsidiary, Guaracara Refining Company Limited, as well as another subsidiary, Paria Fuel Trading Limited.
and a lot of people have asked the question as to if the refinery was so unprofitable over the years, why should anybody believe that a new entity can make it profitable? And there's a simple answer to that. The refinery is saddled with huge debt, billions of dollars of debt. Any person taking it over now will not have to carry that debt.
TPHL replaced Petrotrin late last year, a move which resulted in a loss of some 5,000 jobs at a cost of over $2 billion, according to the government, inclusive of the 1,800 jobs at the refinery when it was mothballed. Now that a company owned by the OWTU is set to own the refinery, and in hindsight, still stand by that decision to close the refinery and the restructuring?
Well, the refinery, as I said, it was burdened with extremely high debt because it's part of an integrated company. And then it had a very high operating cost. So that we expect going forward that it will not have these high operating costs and it'll be debt-free. So they have a good chance.
He said the non-core assets Patriotic offered US $300 million to acquire are not for sale, and the cabinet is now deliberating on what to do with them. Mr. Imbert said there are no legal issues with the cabinet's decision to grant Patriotic a 3-year moratorium on all payments of principal and interest, and a further 10 years to complete payment of the sum of US $700 million it has offered for the refinery.
Republic Bank said Thursday it was disappointed that the Bank of Guyana had turned down its application for the purchase of Scotiabank, but it says it will not dwell on that disappointment. President and CEO Nigel Batiste says Republic Financial Holdings Limited remains fully engaged and committed to supporting Guyana through its operations in that country. The Ministry of Finance had expressed reluctance when Republic announced the plans to acquire Scotiabank's assets last November. In announcing his decision this week, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Gobin Ganga, cited a number of concerns, including competition and concentration in the market. Republic Bank holds 35.4% of the banking system's assets and 36.8% of deposits in Guyana. And the acquisition of Scotiabank would have increased both assets and deposits to 51%. The Guyana government was concerned that Republic would have to would have too much influence on pricing and banking products and rates. There were also concerns about the impact on correspondent banking options and the loss of jobs. Republic is acquiring Scotiabank operations in several Caribbean countries. Earlier this month, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank approved the application for acquisition in Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Police in Greece have arrested a former chief financial officer of a Bermuda-based reinsurance firm accused in a U.S. $1.8 million fraud. The Bermuda Police Service on Thursday said that Yuval Abraham was detained in Athens and is being held in custody pending a hearing on extradition to Bermuda. He faces 8 counts of obtaining a money transfer by deception and 9 counts of false accounting. Abraham is also charged with attempting to obtain a money order by deception and 1 count of money laundering. Back in July, Bermuda Police also announced that Ramesh Dusruth, the owner of a Bermuda-based international life insurance company, was wanted on allegations of misuse of millions of dollars of investors' money. He was later arrested in the Netherlands. Still to come, the Bahamas government inks a deal with Carnival for a multi-million-dollar cruise port on the hurricane-battered Grand Bahama. The details after the break.
No. Take him back? No.
Papi.
Hey, Papi Chulo, hey. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I took him back and it was the worst ever.
No, you see that's the problem. You know he wasn't good in the first place. You can't take him back.
He was good in the starting, and it's like you open the book and the story does like once upon a time, it catch you, and then when he went and did that, and then.
Hi, I'm Brittany Dixon, and you're watching Finding Fit, the show I pair up one client with 2 trainers. Trainer number 1.
Oh my gosh.
It's about fitness, comedy.
You know, I can do this all day, you know.
Drama.
In future, we cannot be late.
Inspirational stories, and so much more. You are gonna love it. You can catch Finding Fit prime time this fall on CaribVision.
The Bahamas Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis on Wednesday signed a $100 million deal with Carnival Corporation for a new cruise port in the hurricane-ravaged Grand Bahama. The cruise port will be developed on 329 acres of land in Sharp Rock, Freeport, and will be the largest Carnival cruise port in the world. The signing had been postponed due to the Category 5 hurricane, which caused widespread destruction in Abaco and Grand Bahama. And Dr. Minnis underscored the importance of the project to the island's recovery.
Grand Bahama and Abaco are vital centers of economic activities and contribute significantly to our national development and economy. In order to rebuild Abaco and Grand Bahama, we have to spur economic development throughout the country. We must also accelerate economic projects in Grand Bahama and begin rebuilding Abaco as soon as is possible.
A second agreement was also signed for the expansion of Holland America Line's Half Moon Key. A cruise pier will be constructed on the north end of the private island, as well as supporting landslide facilities at the pier site. Prime Minister Minnis said the heads of agreement for the two developments will be tabled in the House of Assembly. Staying in the Bahamas, one environmental group has knocked the government's response to the oil spill in Grand Bahama caused by the passage of Hurricane Dorian. It is estimated that 1.9 million barrels of crude oil spilled from the Equinor oil facility when Dorian slammed Grand Bahama. Earlier this week, Environment Minister Remold Ferreira told the media that only 1 goat and 3 birds were affected by the spill. But President of the Re-Earth Bahamas, Sam Duncombe, dismissed the minister's comments as uninformed.
When you have that kind of oil spilling out onto the land environment, it's going to seep down and affect the groundwater. It's going to affect all of the soil. And for the communities that live around that area, you're talking about exposure from, smelling these chemicals all day, which can cause nausea, headaches. They have a longer-term impact because you're constantly inhaling these very toxic chemicals.
A leading Caribbean climate activist is calling on regional leaders to take concrete action to match their climate change proposals on the international stage. St. Lucian Dr. James Fletcher says regional leaders are talking a good game, but their policies at home must match their rhetoric. We get more in this Choice News report.
Barbados's Prime Minister Mia Mottley recently made strong remarks to world leaders, suggesting that if global inaction on climate change continues, metropolitan countries could expect mass migration of climate refugees from the Caribbean and other small island developing states. St. Lucia's Prime Minister has developed a reputation for exhorting the global community to pony up financing for climate change adaptation and mitigation measures. However, one local climate activist says that our actions do not match our rhetoric.
There's a very glaring incongruence between what we say and what we do. So while our leaders have been very vocal on the international stage, agitating for climate finance to help them adapt to the impacts of climate change, they are still doing things on the domestic front that put them and put their countries in even more peril where climate change is concerned. So you still see developments being approved in areas where mangroves are being impacted, and the mangrove is really a very important buffer for so many different reasons. When you start destroying your mangrove, you are taking out a protection for storm surge. You are taking out a filter that prevents sedimentation from reaching the sea. You are destroying habitats of many marine creatures. So when you are taking out mangroves, so you could put in a marina, or you could change your coastline to make it more amenable or more attractive for tourism development, you are really shooting yourself in the foot.
Fletcher also lamented the continuing penchant of Caribbean leaders to allow a traditional tourism model to dictate development policy, even though today's tourists may no longer be primarily driven by sun, sea, and sand.
When you are allowing developments to take place on beachfront because you want to give the visitor to the country the ability to walk out of their room and curl their toes in the sand because you believe that that is what the Caribbean experience is. When you are saying that in 25 years' time, we will be experiencing somewhere between a 1 and a 2 meter sea level rise, which means that the very same developments you're approving now for hotels will be completely inundated just by sea level rise, not even storm surge. So when you put storm surge and sea level rise together, that entire development will get washed away. Yet we continue to allow investors to put up hotels on beachfronts. We continue to allow developments to take place in critical watersheds when we know that water scarcity is one of the issues that we will have to deal with. Then yes, there is a serious incongruence, and that is because we're following a development model that really is not a sustainable development model.
Fletcher says that regional heads must walk the talk that they speak in international fora.
And ahead in Newsline Sports, some good news for Jamaican sprinter Brianna Williams, who tested positive for using a banned substance. Stay with us. Sport is next.
when you think of what we went through with Hurricane Irma, you had to be able to recognize what are the things we need to do to cope with the aftermath. The psychological trauma, to me, is probably the most telling on a lot of people.
Preparedness is the key. So when people are prepared, when people have what their resources in terms of how they can cope with the disaster, they're better able to be able to return to their normal life. They're better able to make decisions that are informed for themselves and for their family, and then for their community. Be ready. Look, listen, and link.
So I've always wanted to know, how do you actually do it? How do you really do the online miracle business, especially something that involves residual income? That's the key.
Okay, so there's two questions there. So the first question is how did I get into it?
Yes.
Well, I lived my passion for 16 years. So when I stopped my sport, I had actually lost my 4th Olympic child to the same girl.
Horsemen know it was the best option at that point to take the man to get him help safely. Just because you don't understand horses, don't be so quick to judge.
So first of all, I understand horses because I grew up competing for 20 years. The smart thing to do would have been for the one officer to hand his horse to the other guy, and he could have ponied the one horse, and then he could have taken custody of the gentleman. Period. End of discussion.
Embattled Jamaican sprinter Brianna Williams may get the all-clear to represent Jamaica at the World Championships in Doha, Qatar, after the Jamaican anti-doping disciplinary panel on Thursday reprimanded her without imposing a period of ineligibility. The ruling followed a 2-day hearing in which members of the panel sought to determine whether the 17-year-old sprinter was at fault for testing positive for using a banned diuretic. In a statement, the IADP said it was unanimously persuaded to the standard of proof on the evidence presented that Williams was in breach of Article 2.1 of the 2015 anti-doping rules, as she had in her body as specified substance, namely HCTZ. However, the statement added, quote, the IADP finds that the athlete has established no significant fault or negligence, as she was given tablets by her guardian and had no intention to cheat in her in-competition sprint event on June 21, 2019. End quote. The IADP also recommended that Williams undergo another education program on anti-doping in sports rules as soon as JADCO carries out the same. Switching sports now, Trinbago Knight Riders captain Kieran Pollard says Thursday's clash with Barbados Tridents is a big game and will be a crucial test for the two-time reigning champions after going winless in their last 2 outings. After strolling to victories in their first 4 games of the campaign, TKR went down to St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots in a dramatic super over in Bastille 8 days ago, before taking just 1 point from their clash with St. Lucia Zouks following a washout in Gros Islet 4 days later. Pollard will be well acquainted with the Kensington Oval venue, having led Tridents for 5 years, including overseeing their capture of the 2014 title. The TKR skipper said he is looking forward to meeting the Tridents.
For us, it's a big game. We haven't played cricket in the last couple of days or so. We got a rain out in St. Lucia after that defeat in St. Kitts. So I think we as a team are hungry. We're looking forward to getting on the park and trying to get some runs and for the batsmen, wickets for the bowlers, and try and test to see where we are now coming into the back end of the tournament. So, for us, we're looking forward to it, hoping the rain stays away, and we can actually just get on the park and play some cricket.
Meanwhile, Trident's captain Jason Holder said it was important for his side to break their losing slide and stressed that the batting especially needed to step up if their fortunes were to improve.
Yeah, after the last game, we were obviously very disappointed. I think the only thing we can do from here now is look at the positives, but definitely look at the areas that we need to touch upon. Obviously, our batting has been a bit of a concern for us. It hasn't been consistent, and we've done a lot of good things, so far in this tournament. I think our bowling has been, pretty tidy. We've been reasonable in the field as well. I think all the teams have really missed a few opportunities, and I just think looking at it holistically, we've just got to play the perfect or complete game. I don't know if there's such a thing, but I think we could be a lot tighter than we have been in the game so far, and it's just a matter for us, to get the momentum going with us in terms of our batting. Put up some better totals in terms of T20 cricket is concerned, and give our bowlers a little bit more to defend.
Staying with the CPL opener, Brandon King struck his third straight half-century as unbeaten leaders Guyana Amazon Warriors maintained their imperious form with a dominant 8-wicket victory over St. Lucia Zouks to notch their 7th straight win on Wednesday night. Choosing to bat first, Zouks once again failed to post a competitive total despite calling the Grand Homs 65 of 37 balls and were restricted to 161 for 7 of their 20 overs. Colin Ingram, who had made 25, and Chris Barnwell, who got 23, both got starts, but the hosts found themselves pegged back by Australian seamer Ben Lucklin, who took 3 for 12, and charismatic leg spinner Imran Tahir, who had figures of 2 for 23. In reply, King and Chandra Paul Hemraj negated any chance of a Zouks comeback when they put on a swift 52 of 34 deliveries for the first wicket. King belted 2 fours and a half dozen sixes, marching to yet another 50 of 36 balls in the 12th over, with the second of 2 successive sixes of Barnwell's medium pace in an over which leaked 21. And that's for sports. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Right now, we have the second round lineup for you, right? So the artists are here and they're ready. I'm not going to waste any time, right? Big Dog, you ready? Ready. Juba, you ready? All right, DJ, lock the cage.
Yeah, I'm aiming at you with the scope. Come through, tie you up in rope. There's no hope. When I come through, man, lose your patience. We've been waiting for something.
Real Danda, when me step on the rhythm, and everybody know what Juba done in this. Now waste no time, not take no time, now write me line, rather come and bust a free.
So let's see what's happening here on the side of St. Croix. Some aromatics being cut here, but it's on the side of Team St. Croix, and some pumpkin as well being cooked, and a pan with a little bit of oil, it looks like, and getting hot, and some knife work being done here by the team on St. Croix.
Again, the major developments of this day. Guyana's President David Granger announces March 2nd, 2020 as Election Day. And the opposition says while it's disappointed, it will work towards that date. And in sports, Jamaican sprinter Brianna Williams reprimanded without any ban after an anti-doping disciplinary panel found that she was not at fault for taking a banned diuretic. That's Caribbean Newsline for news and sports round the clock. Subscribe to CaribVision.com for more of our programming. Log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow. Have yourselves a wonderful evening.